bet it's a bullet gonna get the last laugh.
In today's video, I want to talk about Azucena. The trailer that we were shown for Tekken 8 showed us that she was basically evil. She's on Kazuya's side because Kazuya is basically like helping her branding with her coffee. So she's basically siding with the devil because she has something to gain. And even though a lot of people think that's ridiculous, people think that's ludicrous, honestly, that's very realistic, bro. People will side with evil if they have something to gain. People do it all the time, turning a blind eye to injustice just to gain from it. I think the fact that Reina goes down this path is very, very cool because what we were expecting, right, was her to be good, was her to be sweet, was her to be talking about coffee, and that's it, right? We weren't really expecting much out of the character. All the story and stuff was for the other characters, and she was just going to be the coffee punching, kicking character. But the fact that they're tying her into Kazuya and the whole war is so interesting. First, what I want to do is compare her to Lucky Chloe. Before we knew anything about the story and before we knew she was evil, just going purely based off the fighting style, the moves, the dancing, the attitude, it already seemed like a revamped Lucky Chloe 2.0, which I get a lot of people don't like Lucky Chloe. The moveset is pretty powerful. You talk about the overwhelming damage, but then a lot of people don't like the personality. A lot of people don't like the outfit. But if you just focus on the story of her, I think there was a lot of potential in that. And seeing that they're kind of salvaging that in a way, it's cool to see. For those of you who don't know, here's a short summary of Lucky Chloe's story. I don't know where she's from, it's unknown, but she loves K-pop and she wanted to become that. She did. She ended up being a star and one of the biggest ones in the world of Tekken. But then here's a twist. One of her major sponsors just so happened to be G Corporation. In the timeline of Tekken 7, it is exposed that not only Kazuya is controlling G-Corp, but that he's also a demon. And I always pointed to Lucky Chloe because I think it's super interesting what her take would be. The fact that she's sponsored by the company means that it literally says she's like the face of the company. That's how important she is. So whether or not she knows Kazuya is a demon or not could really show us her true colors. If she flips on the company, that could really hurt them in terms of brand recognition because the Mishima Zaibatsu and G Corporation, they still rely on public favor. Tekken 7 was kind of about that as well. Mishima Zaibatsu does something to make G Corp look bad, they do something to make Mishima look bad. It's a war on many fronts, not just weapons and destruction, but also political, also media, also presentation. And I think Lucky Chloe was an important element in one facet of that war, but she's gone now, right? So here comes the character Azucena. This character kind of seems like they're going the same route, but different. Instead of being the face of G Corporation, she is still being sponsored by them. And one thing about Azucena that's very important, they said that this character is like an MMA superstar basically. Then she joined over to the King of Iron Fist tournament, and basically it's all about branding with her. It's all about selling coffee and becoming more and more famous because that means she could sell more and more coffee. So eventually, if she rises up high enough, she may eventually become the face of G Corporation. And as such, the fact that she is okay with Kazuya being evil, she's participating in the war. Tekken 7 didn't show us that Lucky Chloe was in that deep, and the fact that Azucena is insane because even if Lucky Chloe doesn't flip, and I know you guys are going to be very upset with me talking about Lucky Chloe, but it's important, bro. It's important. Azucena literally is a Lucky Chloe 2.0. But what I was going to say is, even if Lucky Chloe flips on the company and she doesn't want to, sign with the devil, Azucena is there to replace her in fighting style, replace her in personality, but also now replacing her in story importance. The fact that Azucena is basically evil, or I don't know if it's evil, but her intentions is just not good, very selfish. She's putting herself in front of the entire world. I just wonder, where does a character like that end up in all of this? It really looks like Kazuya is going to be taken down in Tekken 8. Not killed, but he doesn't seem like he's going to be coming out on top. You have to wonder what happens to his empire, G Corporation, what happened to his allies, Fang, Azucena. Oftentimes in war, when your side loses, you face incredibly harsh penalties. Azucena is a character that really amazes me. I didn't think the developers had it in them. I remember I did a video over a year ago now. It was reacting to Tendo XI, and he was basically talking about how Shahid is just a boring character. No personality, no nothing. And what I was adding to that by reacting to it is how I think he's a boring character because he's good. Tekken and many fighting games make the mistake of making all of their characters good. Like if you think about it, right? The past few new characters who were added, they're all good. You could start with Tekken 8 and go backwards. Reina, she seems like she's good. Victor seems like he's good. Raven, Shahid, Fakamram's even good. Claudio seems like he's good. Gigas, Katarina, Lydia, Leroy. There's a lot of new characters and I'm struggling to think of all of them, but the point is you have an overwhelming majority of new characters. If you really focus on what they're saying, a lot of them say the same exact things too. Fakamram says, fighting for my family or something. Leroy Smith says, fighting for my neighborhood. Lydia says, fighting for Poland, fighting for justice. They're all saying the same thing. When you really break it down, they all have the same goals. And I feel like after a certain amount of time, it's so incredibly boring. And I think back to Jury. When Jury was being created by Ono in Street Fighter 6, he was pushed to make that character good. But he was like, no, we should make this character bad. And look at that. She's one of the best characters in a very long time because her personality is so distinct and is so original. And I think Azucena also being bad, that shoots her up the tier list in terms of interesting because she's not fighting for her family, her neighborhood, her people. She's fighting for herself. What she wants is totally selfish, and who knows how far she's going to achieve whatever she desires. I think that's so interesting, and the fact that they don't have characters like that more often. I get you can't have a roster full of villains. Maybe you can. I think that would be cool. But you can have a roster full of villains, and I understand that you need to have some good characters, but I think it's too many good characters, and I think it's too safe. I don't know. I just think Azucena is a very interesting character, and I think making her a bad guy was a good decision, and that makes her so much more interesting than pretty much all of the other characters. Not all of them, right? I'm exaggerating a little bit. I think it just makes her more interesting than what she would have been if she was good. If she was good and she was just teaming up with Leroy Smith, I forgot about him. Oh my god. So Feng Wei and Leroy Smith, they have beef. In the past, they fought. We don't know when, we don't know which game, we don't know the timeline. But Leroy Smith came out on top. Feng Wei wants revenge against Leroy, and he joined Kazuya Mishima because Kazuya basically is promising him that revenge. Work with me and we'll basically make that a reality, right? So Feng Wei is working with Kazuya, and Leroy Smith is working with Feng. Now here's the tricky part. Azucena, she's all about coffee, all about branding. On one of her coffee mugs, literally when she do her rage art, is Leroy Smith's brand, his face. That told a lot of us that those two characters were going to be working together. That's another reason why a lot of people thought she was good, because we see how good Leroy Smith is. So here's the tricky part. She appears to somehow be connected to Leroy Smith. Whether she's the supplier of coffee, maybe she has some kind of deal, I don't know. But Leroy Smith's working for good and she seems to be working for evil. What happens if that connection between the two is severed? Do she then flip? Oh no, Leroy Smith, one of my people I sell to, he's going to separate if I don't flip on Kazuya, so I'm going to flip. Or do she say, I don't care, it's more money with G Corporation, so I stay here? Will the developers get that deep into it? I don't know, but I'm just highlighting the fact how those two characters seem to be connected, but they're on opposing sides, and also they have enemies on the opposing side. I don't know, Tekken is doing some very interesting things in terms of story, and it got my mind racing, obviously.